So thank you everybody for attending. Sorry, running a bit late, but we've got everything here, so we'll get started. So welcome to today's webinar on Amber Electric SmartShift. It enables households to take advantage of changes in wholesale electricity prices by shifting their load, appliances and batteries. So my name is Kelvin Say. I'm a research fellow at the Energy Transition Hub in the University of Melbourne, where I specialise on the market integration of customer distributed energy resources. So before we begin, please join me in acknowledging the traditional owners of the various lands from which we are joining this webinar and in paying my respects to the elders past, present and emerging. So this webinar is being hosted by the Climate Energy College and the Energy Transition Hub. And it's the last in a series of 8 webinars on consumer-centric energy and is sponsored by the Victorian Clean Technology Fund. So this webinar is being recorded and the recording will be made available on the Climate Energy College and Energy Transition websites by tomorrow. So at the later part of this webinar, it will be run as a Q&A session. So please submit questions anytime using the Q&A feature down the bottom of your screen and upvote any questions that you'd like to be answered. So I'd like to introduce our speaker. So Dr. Sarah Russell-Smith is currently the General Manager of Special Projects at Amber Electric. She's passionate about creating a more environmentally, socially, and economically sustainable future. And prior to Amber, she worked at Boston Consulting Group as a project leader focused on energy and climate change. And also at the WWF as a strategic projects manager focusing on sustainable finance. She has a PhD from Stanford University where her research focused on sustainable target value design, designing buildings for which energy, water, climate and ozone impacts were within the planet's carrying capacity. So I'm very much looking forward to your presentation, Sarah, and the floor is now yours.
Thank you. Can you hear me all right? Sweet. I'm so sorry for the challenges, but I'm really, really excited to be here and to share with you Amber Electric and specifically our new SmartShift beta project. So basically our mission at Amber is to shift Australia to 100% renewables. And so my background is in energy and climate change, as Kelvin said, and so I'm here basically because I'm passionate about committing 100% of my time to making the world a better place. And we also have on the line from Amber, Kent Humphreys, who is a senior software developer, and he does all of the magic behind the algorithms and tech and product. So when we get to the discussion, any really technical questions, I'll deflect to him. So thank you. If he can answer via audio, if not, we can do it via chat, or I will do my best. Cool. Thanks, Kelvin, for the thumbs up. So my plan for today is to go through both the basic Amber business model, so passing through wholesale prices, and then SmartShift, which is how we automatically optimize and shift load for specific devices for people, because they go hand in hand. And then I'll leave a bunch of time at the end for questions, because I think it'll be more fun if we have a discussion. So basically, Amber, we're passionate about the planet and technology. I mean, at least my drive is behind climate change. So as you know, global emissions need to be reduced to net zero in the next couple decades to avoid lots of impacts like sea level rise, biodiversity loss, etc. And disadvantaged and developing nations will be more affected. And energy globally drives a huge fraction of that, about 2/3, and electricity about 1/4. And in Australia, electricity is more like 1/3 because we burn so much coal. Cool, I was just checking the chat to make sure it wasn't anything for me. So yeah. That's why we're here. So what are we doing to address these problems? At Amber, we've developed a new way to buy power, which is passing through wholesale prices. And the goal of that is to unlock the value of renewable energies for everyone. We allow people to save money by automatically shifting their usage to times when there are cheap renewables generating, so solar and wind. And we believe this is the fastest way to achieve 100% renewables. So the electricity market is already being disrupted. So we used to always have to instantaneously match supply and demand. So basically someone turned on their light and we needed to make sure that there were electrons flowing to switch those on. But now we have like more and more intermittent renewables, but we don't have as much control over when sun is shining and wind is blowing. But we also have growing numbers of controllable devices. So on the left, we have show the growth of renewables, and on the right, we have like battery and EV growth, but those are just some of the devices we control. So basically, that's a huge opportunity to adjust demand, not just match supply to demand. So that's what we're trying to do at Amber. So first I'm going to go through here our like basic product, which is passing through wholesale prices and why that's good for the planet. Basically, prices are correlated to when renewables are generating. So the way electricity retail works traditionally is a retailer, so like common ones, AGL, Energy Australia, Origin, etc. The most globally, most commonly, you get a flat price, so X cents per kilowatt hour, and that's what you as a consumer pay. But retailers like us buy electricity at the wholesale price, which changes both every day. And like in Australia, it's a 30-minute intervals, and then also seasonally. So prices in summer traditionally in Australia higher than in winter because we need to run air conditioners. And these prices, especially daily, are driven more and more by availability of renewables. So you may have heard of like the duck curve. Basically, when we have a ton of solar generating in Australia, prices get really low because we have so much supply, and it's often when people are at work, so there's not as much demand. So on the left here, we can see basically the blue line is the flat rate of traditional retail prices. The green line is the wholesale prices, varying from midnight to midnight, basically, and cheap during the middle of the day when solar is generating, really expensive when people get home from work, turn everything on, and then often cheap again at night if there's a bunch of wind. So the challenge is that currently customers don't, like homeowners don't have access to the wholesale price, so there's no incentive for them to adjust their behavior. So we reinvented this. So we still have the wholesale prices on the left, and on the right you have pictures of the Amber app. We basically pass through wholesale prices directly to customers, currently only residential customers, and then we charge a fixed monthly fee. So that's $15 a month. And so customers basically can they save already in most cases just by getting wholesale prices, because we're not, we don't have like massive hedging prices, and then which are included in most retailers' prices. And then also if people want to shift when they're consuming energy manually, they can save even more. And then SmartShift will do that for them automatically. So here is a graph. So this is on January 31st last year in Victoria, because we got most of our early customers in Victoria. So in green, you have for the average Amber customer every half hour. In blue, you have the basically the average load profile. And then in orange, you have the wholesale prices. And so what we can see, the difference between the blue and the green is that average Amber customers shifted their load and used less when the price spiked. So when the orange line is really high, and then they use a bit more at night when the prices were really low. So that's great. And then we even can see a stronger trend. This is the top 50% of Amber customers, so the half that like are more aggressive in shifting their load automatically. And so you can see actually, so the scale is adjusted, but basically they shifted even more, which would save them money because they'd be using power when it's cheaper. And then we also did a comparison for the previous financial year on like in different states, how much the annual Amber price compared to the retail reference price. So how much customers would save over the course of the year. So I think like if you look at the right, you can see month by month how much people saved. And so not surprisingly, if you have a flat rate in the reference price, but at Amber, you pay the wholesale prices, and we know wholesale prices are more in summer and less in winter. In sort of June, July, people saved more because wholesale prices were lower. And then in summer, so December, January, they didn't necessarily have savings, but over the course of the year. So this is, they saved about $405. And this is South Australia. And then we also did it for New South Wales. So again, here it's more like $350, and they actually lost money in summer. So, but saved a lot in the other months. So it's another thing that's interesting for us is like when we're onboarding customers, thinking about when they join us, because if you are immediately hit with a higher bill, you might be less convinced of the Amber model than if you join just in winter and you're saving a ton. So we try and make the messaging really clear about, sometimes you may be worse off, but over the average of the year, like over the full financial year, we guarantee that you will be at least as good as like the default market offer. But we are quite careful about customer acquisition just ahead of summer. And so that is our pass-through wholesale prices, which is where we're trying to gain scale right now. About a month ago, we hit 10,000 customers, which is a big milestone for Amber. And then what we also have is, and which is like the main purpose of chatting with you today, is like our future vision. So we want to be able to be shifting lots and lots of demand to when renewables are generating. So basically you can have smart devices driving demand, but if they're smart, you can communicate with them and shift when they're consuming power. And then you have renewables, which are providing cheaper and greener power, but you need to align when you're using the power with when the renewables are generating. So that's our goal with SmartShift. And so we both are working on controlling different devices and the algorithms to do that. So for instance, right now, so we have a trial program in South Australia supported by the South Australian government. And we have 3 types of devices that we're controlling. And so those are pool pumps, electric hot water, and batteries. So for instance, for pool pumps, if you need to use it, say approximately 8 hours a day, you're drawing a couple of kilowatts, they can be quite expensive, like hundreds if not thousands of dollars a year. I'm just checking the chat to make sure it's not that people can't hear me. Okay, great. Hot water, basically heat it up, probably need it to charge a couple hours a day, at least every other day. And then batteries are even more exciting because you can both import and export. And so we will eventually plan to control more devices. So like heating and cooling, electric vehicles, etc. But these are the ones we're trialing at the moment. We started this in sort of mid-2020, just in sort of the greater Adelaide area, and we'll be planning to roll it out more broadly as we get more learnings. So I want to give a few examples of how it's going. So for pool pumps, hot water, and batteries. So basically on the right, you can see how this looks in our app. So we have the regular Amber app where you saw it a bit before, but then for SmartShift, so you basically on the top, you have what device it is. So this is for a pool pump. You have the little green toggle. So basically you can toggle it on and off. So if there's, for some reason, you really like, you want to clean your pool, so you want to have it on for a long period of time, regardless of what the price is, you can just toggle it off and then we will let you have control of your own pool. But if it's being smart shifted, you can basically tell us sort of if you have restrictions on timing. So for instance, some people say any time of day, 24 hours doesn't matter, just go for lowest price for greatest renewable percentage. Others say, hey, the pool pump is loud and I have little kids, so I don't want it on between 10 p.m. and 6 a.m., things like that. And then so in the app, you can see the price that they're paying, how that compares to the grid average, and then the percentage of renewables. And then you can see sort of for each day. So Kent took these screenshots this morning. Thank you, Kent. You can see for today, Wednesday, May 12th, for this customer, when the pool pump is planned to be on, and then the expected price, and how that compares to the grid and the percentage renewables. And so In terms of how we've been doing with pool pumps, so we have a few less than 100 customers enrolled in South Australia. On average, in the last sort of financial year, they've paid about 19 cents per kilowatt hour, which is about 4 cents less than the wholesale price. So then other Amber customers who aren't being smart shifted, and 14 cents less than the default market offer. And so this equates to, if you're already an Amber customer but with a pool but not being smart shifted, about $100 savings, but compared to the default offer, more like $350. For hot water, we have even more customers enrolled. There are a lot of people with controlled loads, basically, so a higher fraction of people with electric hot water than pools. And so they're paying about 4 cents per kilowatt hour. So that's obviously super, super low, which is great. And then compared to the default offer, this equates to about $550 annual savings. What we wanted to see is compare these guys to if they just been on like Amber generally, but not smart shifted. And also we're working on right now moving them from tariffs that are just a controlled load tariff, only say between 11 p.m. and 7 or 8 a.m. available, to what's called a solar sponge tariff. So also being able to heat the hot water in the middle of the day when power is very, very cheap. It's not negative prices. And then an example here is, so there is, unfortunately this summer there weren't that many price spikes. So the best time for SmartShift is in the summer when you have high price events. I see a lot of chat, so I just want to make sure it's not that people can't. Okay, just about the presentation. Great. So basically there was only one price spike this year in South Australia in mid-March, but we did see awesome savings for hot water customers who basically didn't use their hot water when it got really, really expensive. And so they saved, say, like $5 that evening compared to those not on SmartShift. Just to be clear, we consider a price spike when the price is, what I think, more than $3. So then the last one is batteries. Batteries are more exciting, as I said, because they're a bunch of different operating modes. So you can import or export. You can also self-consume from your battery, or you can charge from your solar. So we have about 15 battery customers. We're currently integrated with like a few of the market leaders in Australia in terms of the API integration to do the control, but we're looking to add more because that will help us gain scale. And this was really exciting on the price spike. So basically we had people over the course of the price spike, which was about 4 hours, save up to like $80, and others who were more like sort of 20 to 50. That's in a single price spike event. So if we had more price spikes, like you could basically pay off your bill in a summer, which is pretty exciting. And then I also want to show like a real life example. So a customer that we have had with Amber for 1.5 years, and she's consented for us to share this, and who then joined SmartShift basically when we got it operational mid-2020. They have a pool. So this is Heidi and Tim. They have the couple at home plus one son, and then they also have like their daughters now have their own families, but they've gotten them to convert to Amber too, which is great. They joined in mid-2020 with a pool pump, which they use approximately 8 hours a day. They're flexible on any time a day. And basically, they used to use it sort of 8 to midnight and 2 to 6. So that would mean an average Amber price of about 22 cents. So average wholesale price, and then an average price with SmartShift was only about 15 cents over the period that we looked at. And so that's like 60 cents a day, and obviously hundreds of dollars a year. And so it's really exciting to like see how this can make a difference for individual customers. And you can read more about that story on Facebook, actually. And then the last thing I wanted to say is basically, so this is a beta project. We've been running for about a year. We're still actively trying to onboard new customers. We're going to refine our algorithms. Basically, we are shifting load, but we've been relatively conservative as we work out operational kinks. So I haven't really talked about the operations behind it. I focused more on like how it's working for customers. But it's been really interesting figuring out what works for different customers, making sure that like customers' pools don't go green, making sure they have hot water, making sure if they want to maintain a certain amount of charge in their batteries, they can. And so it's a balance between making the algorithm strong enough that they save people money, but also ensuring that they don't lose things that they need, such as hot water, if like price spikes don't eventuate, etc. We want to expand this nationally, and we want to add different device types and then more devices within each device type, right? So we're only integrated with a couple different batteries. I think that's all I was planning to share as an overview, and then I'm happy to open it up to discussion, because I think the fun part is hearing what questions you guys have.
Okay, thank you so much for sharing all of that. And it's really nice seeing all these things in real life, and it's not theoretical, and it really is, showing results for the customers themselves. Okay, so our first question we've got is Alan Piers, and he asked us for us to ask it, or for me to ask it on his behalf. And so the first question is, you mentioned that the wholesale price plus $15 a month. How do you cover the network and other charges that usually lead to a fixed charge of over $1 a day?
So we also pass through the network prices.
Okay. Sure. So the next question I'll ask Danny De Schutter to come to the panel and ask the question in person. Thank you.
Okay, that's great. Thank you, Kelvin. Thanks, Sarah, for the presentation. It's very nice. I noticed that obviously when you're looking at the automated solution, you're looking at appliances that are controllable, like air conditioners and pool pumps and things like that. I would imagine that for many households, their biggest loads may be things like the washing machine, the dryer, the cooking appliances, and they may not have pool pumps or batteries, etc. What's your value proposition for those families?
Yeah, it's a good point. And like, Kent, if you want to add, feel free. So basically, this is still a beta product for us. So that's why we only have a few different devices. In theory, like, there's no reason why we can't expand to other devices and use smart plugs. And so therefore, if you had a smart plug that was had some sort of comms, be it Wi-Fi or something more reliable, then you could control other things as well. But you're right now it's quite limited in scope. And so unless you have a pool, electric hot water, or a battery, we can't yet help you shift your load. But we're working on the long-term vision and strategy so that hopefully we can, to achieve our mission of 100% renewables in Australia, we need both scale in terms of number of customers and in terms of devices we control, so that we can shift more and more load. So yeah, we definitely need to expand.
Just on that, I think the basic Amber app, even before SmartShift, one of the values that it adds is it just teaches you about the prices and the amount of renewables in the grid throughout the day. So we have a forecast page where you can see for the rest of the day what prices are looking like. And essentially, we want to teach customers over time to learn that from 6 p.m. or 4:30 till 6:30 p.m. is a peak time. And when they log into the app every day and they see that prices are high during that time every day, over time as a customer, you can start to learn, it's not a good time to put my dryer on it at 4:30. It's actually smarter for me to chuck it on a timer and run it at 4 a.m. But let's assume it's not too noisy. So there's a big part about just educating customers about generally how electricity prices change and renewables change throughout the day. And basically load shifting yourself. So me within my own house, I do a lot of this. I put a lot of my heavy appliances on during the day if I'm working from home, or overnight if I'm not going to be around.
Okay, great. Oh, Danny, you've also got one more question in regards to wholesale price pass-through and risk.
Yes, I suppose, passing through the wholesale price does move the risk from retailers down to the individual consumers, which is obviously why retailers have, those flat prices, and they use the expensive hedging. from your point of view, what do you see as the risk of like, this kind of like Texas scenario where, for a prolonged duration, prices will be very high. You can't just, shift your load any further, and you have to cook or whatever the thing might be, and it might end up actually costing more. So how do you guys consider that risk?
Yeah, great question, and we got it a lot right when that happened with Gritty and the Texas events. So, and we have a more detailed blog post about it on our website if people want to read more. But basically, that can't happen in the same way in Australia. So on the one hand, we do have a hedging strategy. We do purchase some hedges. And we have a couple of things. One, we guarantee for our customers that they will never pay more than basically the default offer. So just like any other retailer, we have to publish like the basic information plans, and we state our rate, which equates to the default offer in the NEM, or in it's slightly different in Victoria. And so if like we do a reconciliation at the end of the year, and if a customer's bill over the course of the year has been more than that, we credit them the difference. So we protect customers in that way. And then in the shorter term, in the NEM, there are basically rules in place so that if the price spikes for more than a few hours in a week, like it just shuts down and goes to a default price, so that customers can't be hit in the way that they were in Texas.
Thank you.
Okay, great. So the next question by Russell Williams.
G'day, Sarah. Thanks for the chat. In fact, there's a few questions from several of us talking about the tech behind controlling the devices. So is there any common element in the way you're controlling devices? And there's a subsequent one from me on how you're looking at controlling EV charges.
I think this is a question for Kent.
Sure thing. Yeah, I saw a couple of questions around our architecture and how things are working. Essentially, all our controlling is cloud-based. So we're only working with devices that we can control using an API over the internet. So we're running infrastructure on AWS, Amazon cloud services. And essentially, we're running a loop that will process every 5 minutes and just check what are the prices like right now, what's the state of the devices, what's the plan of how to optimize this device throughout the day. Okay, the best thing for the device to be doing right now is to be in state X. I'll communicate over the API to the device and tell it to go into state X for the next 5 minutes. So that's effectively how the control loop is working. Does that answer that part of the question?
Well, the other part was what sort of devices are we talking about? Nest, Apple, whose sort of devices, and in particular, I'm keen on EVSEs.
Sure. Yeah. So specifically, right now with so battery devices, for example, we're purely focused on solar inverters that have their own smart access. So essentially, there are some inverters that are dumb and they're just passing power around to places, and there's no way to talk to that device over the internet. Whereas some companies, Tesla being a prime example, have a smart solar inverter, so we can directly talk to that device through the internet. So that's batteries. Basically, we're relying on a smart inverter. For right now, with pool pumps, we have a plug that is Wi-Fi enabled, so that we can directly talk to that plug, and essentially a customer will plug their pool pump into this device, which will then be plugged into the power socket. And we can communicate with that device through Wi-Fi, through an API, and turn the power on and off. Hot water systems is a little bit different. That's integrated into the meter board. So we work with a partner who installs a device in your meter board. And again, that is Wi-Fi enabled, so that we can talk to that device via an API. In terms of EVSE, so electric vehicle charging, we haven't, well, maybe Sarah can talk about that. As far as I'm aware, we're not charging any right now, but I don't know what our future plans are with that.
But you're the same way you're doing hot water. If you've got a dedicated circuit for your EVSE, you could run that on the same concept.
Yeah, exactly. Essentially, the requirement is that we can talk to your device over the open internet. That makes it more difficult, for example, to integrate with Apple HomeKit, because Apple HomeKit is all about you sort of privately controlling your devices within your home. So we just need to make sure it's a technology that we can talk to through the open internet. That's kind of the simplest explanation.
Cool.
Okay, Russell, we've got one more question in regards to feed-in tariffs.
Oh yeah, so Sarah, the question comes in that you're obviously monitoring the spot prices, but when your SmartShift is turning devices on or off, does it look at the opportunity costs that even though the spot price might be low, my feed-in tariff might be high, so you running something in the middle of the day might actually be costing you money if you're using my premium feed-in, for instance?
So the default for Amber, yes, that's a good question. The default for Amber customers is that you both pay wholesale prices for what you consume, and also we pay you the wholesale price for what you export, with the exception of Victoria, where there's the minimum feed-in tariff. But right now, since we're only doing smart shifting in South Australia, that hasn't been a challenge, but it's something we will need to take into account in other states.
Okay.
Thank you. So next question by Jeremy Evans.
Sarah, one fascinating talk. Thank you. I wonder whether if you sign up for Amber, can you still aspire to join a VPP if a suitable one surfaces?
Yeah. So yes, right now, like across the NAM, Amber is just a retailer. And so you could be with Amber and then do a VPP of a different sort. I mean, Ken, tell me if I'm wrong. We would eventually prefer to get as many customers as possible on SmartShift, but I mean, basically everything that Amber does, we try and align our incentives with our customers. So even when customers are signing up, like we do a bit of a look like at their previous bills, like consumption and exports, to see if it's a good fit. For instance, if you have a huge solar installation and no battery, so say you export more than you import, Amber is actually not a good fit for you, because you should be with someone who offers you a really big feed-in tariff, whereas our feed-in tariff is spot price, and that's really low in the middle of the day. So I guess the answer is I haven't come across it yet, but I would think we would try and be really transparent and work with our customers. And if they thought something was better for them, we would not be opposed to that.
Sorry, yeah, I did mention this to Chris, one of the co-founders at Amber, and his answer to that question was, Amber is a VPP, but just not as you know it. So if you think about what a VPP, what is your goal when you join a virtual power plant? It's that you want to optimize a group of you to benefit the grid and for you to get lower prices. And that is like precisely the Amber model. So by definition, I mean, I'm maybe being a bit marketing spin here, but you could say that everyone who is an Amber customer is participating in a VPP, where we're trying to encourage you to shift your load away from peak times, and we're passing on the savings if you do that.
Thank you for those answers. That's great.
Sorry, my computer just blue screened. So while that's reconnecting, there's one more question by Veronica that I'd like her to ask.
Yeah, sorry, I just unmuted myself. Thank you. So I was wondering that I realized that your current field trial is in South Australia, so it might not be that applicable there. But if you were to move the business model to, for example, Victoria, then I wonder whether you can maintain your mission in line with the customer value proposition. What I mean is that to achieve your mission, you kind of rely on low prices being high renewables or low carbon footprint, and high prices meaning high carbon footprint, and there needs to be a positive correlation between the two. But I wonder whether in Victoria that is really true in all cases, because if you shift customers to low overnight, or encourage them to shift to low overnight, low cost time periods that might actually be high carbon dioxide footprint time periods. So you might have a bit of a challenge there to keep your customers in line with your mission statement.
Yeah, it's a good point that, like, if you have full base load at night, that that's a challenge. I mean, we've found that mostly there is still a correlation between prices, but it's certainly probably daytime will be more guaranteed low cost and low carbon. So I think we would try and predominantly shift to the middle of the day when prices aren't the cheapest anyways, but it's certainly something we will have to think about and let customers sort of think about whether their goal is more optimizing for price or more optimizing for carbon, because both are relevant and they're mostly correlated, but not totally.
Thank you.
I've got
Did you have something to add?
question.
Looks like you might.
Yeah, I've got one question to ask in terms of how have you been able to see, as you've been educating the customers, that their behaviors themselves are changing and beneficial for yourselves and beneficial for them?
Yeah, so I think, I mean, I showed those slides from what is like January 2020, which is before SmartShift existed, right? So we have seen, especially with our early customers, that they are very motivated. And so people have done a lot of manual load shifting. So, I mean, that is behavior change, right? And so you have people who look at the app and shift their behavior. And so that's been great for our first few thousand customers. I think like our goal is to have, we've just hit 10,000. We want like 40,000 customers by the end of this year, 100,000 by end of next year, and 1 million in the next sort of 5 years. And I think the more mainstream you go, the less you can rely on people shifting their own behavior. And so that's why having SmartShift will be so important to help people who want to do that and are concerned or are into technology, but yeah, don't plan to spend that much time looking at the app themselves.
Yeah, we've had really good results with our pool pump customers who have just been able to set and forget. So, you know, instead of having to manually be thinking about, you know, how can I get the most value out of my pool pump or my solar panels is another question. But essentially, we are already seeing that there's a certain level of customers that are super engaged and they want to monitor every half hour what's going on, and they have spreadsheets and they're tracking everything. And we love those customers, but obviously we want to scale to the regular people who want less effort and, you know, more rewards. So SmartShift is kind of the way to achieve that.
Just as an extension of that, does Amber ever see themselves as entering the NEM as more of a market participant with demand response services and sort of pre-contracting ahead certain levels of responses, or would they rather remain at the customer side, really just trying to maximize their objectives from what their exposure is to the wholesale market?
I actually don't know the answer to that. Like, I think we're very much customer incentive aligned, but Kent, have you had any discussions with Chris or Dan on that?
No, yeah. All I know is that our mission is to get more people using renewables and to try and, you know, shut down more fossil fuels. So if that's a way to do that in 3 years' time and we're at scale and we can start achieving that, I don't see why we wouldn't do it. But I think the other thing that we're always focused on is how can we make the energy market transparent and simple being a subjective word, but yeah, how can we make it as simple as possible and as transparent as possible? So I think if we found a way to do that where customers felt like they were in control and that they understood how they were participating in the market, you know, I don't see how it would clash with our mission as it is. But yeah, I think that's years away.
Yeah, I think that's exactly right. Like even for SmartShift, so for instance, customers could get hundreds of dollars savings a year. In many other VPPs, you basically get paid a flat rate, but then or a portion of the benefits, or there are lots of different setups. But our plan is if like eventually we'll want SmartShift to be a product once we are confident in what the value it's delivering. But our plan would be to, again, pass through, this is still like to be finalized, but our current hypothesis is we'd pass through the benefits to the customers and some sort of flat subscription fee to keep like customers and Amber's incentives aligned, basically. So I think if we did something differently, and we would always have like customers at the heart of it, and again, keep it transparent, etc., as Kat said.
Okay, great. Now just I'll ask Manfred to ask his question.
Hi, thanks. Can you tell us about any of the APIs that Amber has and what the roadmap might look like?
Do you mean for our customers to use to access data?
For partners that might be looking to integrate with Amber and Amber customers and their customers to Amber.
Sure, yeah. So right now we have a sort of very basic API that is in need of modernizing. So that's something that we don't really publicize on the website, but we do have a very basic API to expose price data. But we're literally in the work of making a much more robust API where we can give customers an insight into their usage and pricing data for the past, well, however much time they want. So our focus right now is to really empower individual customers. You'll need to provide your login credentials in order to access that data. Down the track, yeah, I don't know any specific plans to be supporting partners through opening up APIs. Our goal with SmartShift is that we want to be the contact with the customer. So we want customers to be able to open the Amber app, and that's kind of the hub of all their SmartShift device, all their smart devices that we can shift for them. So I guess, yeah, I'm not the CTO, so it's kind of I'm not up to that level of strategy, but I can just tell you right now, our next plan is to open up an API so that customers themselves can access their data. So I saw a customer asking about different battery support that will enable you, if you're a very tech savvy customer, to kind of maybe add in your own optimization that you see fits your specific usage pattern.
Cheers, thank you.
Great. I've got one question from an anonymous attendee. So how might SmartShift work for customers with low load profiles? So those without pools or EVs, or those using energy, and what for them is largely non-negotiable ways?
Yeah, so I mean, SmartShift will be less useful for people with smaller loads, and especially those with less shiftable loads. Same as, honestly, if you, like for Amber getting wholesale prices, if you have very, very low consumption, your savings will be much lower than if you have higher consumption. And so it is true that if you either have a lot of shift, like if you have a lot of demand and especially a lot of shiftable demand, you get more value.
And we just in the regular app, SmartShift aside, we just have a feature for all our customers, which is they can be notified when the price reaches a certain point. So if you do have a fairly small load usage curve, but you want to know when the price is getting really high, you can easily set up the app to be notified, and then you can just respond and go, oh wow, there's a price event that's happening and I don't want to be charged for that. I'll just turn off the air conditioner for the next hour. So it's kind of, yeah, if your load curve is very low, there may not be value in SmartShift, but just the general Amber experience will help you avoid those spiky prices.
Okay, thank you. I guess we've got one more, I guess time for one more question, which I will ask. How have you been finding the role of forecasting and when things work and don't work, and have you been improving that process, or do you just use AEMO's forecasted data?
You're better positioned for this.
Sorry, yeah. So we're just using AEMO's forecast data right now. There are other projects, but I'm not sure that they're announceable. So yeah, it is very frustrating to be working with data that is not super reliable. This is definitely why we're running this beta program in South Australia. We want to see, if using the data that we have available, how much value can we add? And I think that's definitely been one of the points, particularly for batteries, as battery arbitrage can be very delicate, like deciding whether or not it's worth you using your own battery energy or pumping it back into the grid. That depends a lot on what the price is going to be like that day. So yeah, essentially this is a pain point for us, something we're working on, and something that we need to educate customers about as well, that even though we can tell you what we think the price will be in 8 hours time, it's the sort of the likelihood of that price being accurate in 8 hours time is probably not as high as we'd like. Definitely a challenge.
And yeah, as Ken mentioned, we have a strategic project trying to work on better forecasting, but early days.
Yes, but that seems to be a pain point for everybody anyway. So it's an interesting challenge going forward. Okay, so I guess, is there any more? Or two more. Okay, we've got another question from Veronica. Shall I bring you back to the floor? There we go.
Thank you. I heard that some battery providers or technology providers or hardware providers would void actually the warranty if you were to actually control the batteries with an external software. And the reason is that their batteries were actually manufactured for a certain number of cycles, turning on and off in a day. And I was wondering whether you have encountered any problem or issues like that.
Yeah, we some of the partners we're working with have requirements. So they've just passed those requirements on to us, and we've integrated that into the algorithm. So, you know, if there's a day with lots and lots of price events, we can't just go in and discharge, charge, discharge, discharge, charge. We've got to be more conservative and set to their limitations. So yeah, exactly. We've seen the exact kind of limitations that you've talked about, and we just ensure that the software meets those requirements.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. So yeah, thank you so much for your presentation. It's wonderful to see this entirely new business model emerge and a retailer space that's essentially, yeah, you're forging ahead as the leader. So I guess this will begin to bring the webinar to a close. So I'd like everybody to keep an eye on the Climate Energy College and Energy Transition websites for any upcoming events, or register with us at the bottom of the page for any automated updates. And also check out the YouTube channel for any recordings of past events. So I would really like to thank all of you for attending, and thank you so much, Sarah and Kent, for the presentation. So this draws our webinar to a close, and I hope all of you have a great day.
Thank you so much for having us. It was really lovely. And sign up to Amber.